that got turned off. So let's do that. And okay, we have started. So welcome to, oh, there we go. Did it go back? It did. All right, well, welcome everybody. This is Navigating the Dental Insurance Game, Solutions to Common Struggles, Mistakes, Blunders, and Myths that cause you to leave money on the table. I'm Jen Butler, CEO and founder of JV Partners, and my partner in crime here, Miss Sherry Jolly.
Hi.
Sherry's with Dental Support Essentials. I'm located here in lovely Phoenix, Arizona, and Sherry is in Ohio, Cleveland, outside of Cleveland.
No, Columbus.
Columbus, outside of Columbus. It was a C.
It is a C, and it is in Ohio.
It is in Ohio. So for those of you who are attending live, thank you so much. We want to make sure that you guys can use the chat. So make sure to be putting questions, comments, thumbs ups, clappy hands when you see or hear something that you really like. But for sure, we're here to answer your questions, to address those struggles, to clear up some mistakes, some blunders and some myths. That's what this is going to be about. So without further ado, let's make sure that my slides will work. Here we go. Again, I'm Jen Butler, and this is Sherry Jolly.
Hi.
So let's go through a few housekeeping rules. One, use the chat. So we've got a couple attendees, and I've seen some people using them. I want to make sure that I can see all the attendees. No, I keep clicking on my screen. Go back. It doesn't want me to go back. Stop. There we go. So just make sure you keep using your chat. Post questions, that type of things. Use headphones. Sherry and I are pretty bold and brash and brazen, and we are adults. So sometimes there might be some words that might slip out that you might not want young children to hear, or if you're in a public place like Starbucks. So consider your environment, consider your surroundings, and make sure to use headphones if you think that that would be most appropriate. And please stay with us. This is our first time using Zoom webinar, and so far we're loving it. But if we do have some tech issues, we have some incredible people supporting us through this webinar and this live Facebook event that if we do have some tech issues, stay with us, and we are absolutely going to try and clear those up right away. Don't jump off. But if you do need to go, we are going to send this out to anyone who registered for this. And this is a second webinar in a series. Our first one we will be talking a little bit about, and we're going to have another one next month, really talking about how to increase your collections, how to get 98 to 100% of the collections of the money that you are deserved. So look for that webinar next month, and that'll be our 3 webinars in this series. Okay, perfect. So let's talk about we've got the top 10 common struggles, mistakes, blunders, and myths, and we're going to talk about the first one. Sherry. So this is one thing that Sherry, when she's working with her clients, she hears this all the time, because Dental Support Essentials, they help clients with AR and billing and submitting claims and
Absolutely.
calling repair. So this is what they do on a daily basis. So Sherry, let's talk about, can I just write it off?
No.
No.
The short answer is no. You can't just
Never.
write it off. Basically, if you have a contract with an insurance company, you actually have a contract. The contract is more about agreeing on pricing and on how to bill and collect the members from the members of that plan. And you actually have an agreement on how you're going to do that. And accepting what insurance pays and writing off the difference is actually a violation of your contract, and it is, I'm going to use the F word here, fraud. It's called waiving the copay. And we see it most with fluoride, because most plans only cover fluoride once a year, but many doctors recommend it twice a year at the 2 hygiene visits, and then they write off the fluoride when it's not covered. But if you billed it to the insurance company and the insurance company sent it back to you and said, you need to collect this from the patient, then you truly need to collect it for the patient. So that is a big thing that you have to be able to understand, is that when you sign those contracts, when you bill the insurance, you have to bill the insurance the same thing you bill the patient. And that means that you can't just write it off afterwards. Now, there's a difference between writing off in order for the patient to get a benefit and writing off a bad debt because someone refused to pay. There's a big difference with that. So don't think that if you have someone who you've sent a bill to, that you've tried to collect from, that just absolutely says, hey, I'm not going to pay, and you send them to collections and you write it off as a bad debt. That's not the same thing as writing off a copay or waiving a copay.
Yeah. So, and if there is a trend that your insurance company, either when they do an audit or if they have a member, one of their members, i.e. also one of your patients, calls and notifies them and says, they never collect my copay, and so they kind of tattle on you, your insurance company can drop you from the insurance plan, can audit all of your charts, can fine you. There can be some significant consequences. So, and it's not just over-the-counter funds that you can't write off. It's not submitting to insurance and just collecting the patient portion and not submitting the full insurance fee. You know, maybe you gave the patient a discount in the office. You have to also, you can't just write off and then submit to the insurance company the full fee. You have to let the insurance company know that you gave that patient an additional discount, right, and you have to let the insurance company know as well. So no, you cannot just write it off. Serious consequences to that, especially if it's one of your major insurance plans.
It's a common myth too. It's a very common myth that we run into all the time. I'm like, no, you can't just do that. There's a way to do it and a way not to do it, and you have to follow the lines.
Yes, because you do not want to be dropped from that insurance company or have other further consequences. So, and I get, when I consult in offices, because we do in-office consulting, when we consult in offices, I hear from docs, or when I'm speaking, I hear from docs, well, our doctor just does it because they're nice. You know, oh, they don't collect the copay because, you know, what they get from the insurance company is enough. Or they don't want to upset the patient, or they have our client or the doctor has a hard time collecting money. It's not, you can't be generous.
Not unless you really, truly just do the work for free. That's the only time you cannot collect money, when you truly don't bill the insurance company and you truly, or you send it with a zero balance and you intended to do it for free. But you have to actually intend it to do it for free. You can't do partial payments. You either work for free or you follow the rules.
All right, so no, you can't just write it off. Okay, which is better, being in with just a few insurance companies or all of them? And this is actually a huge thread on some message boards that I'm on, especially with startup. You know, when you're a startup company, this is a big question that they try to answer. So, what are your thoughts?
Well, I have to tell you that the majority of the time, there are usually major employers that the majority of your patients in your area work for. And so it might make sense to join those companies, but it always comes down to the terms of the plan and the fee schedule. And what you really have to pay attention to is when you start signing up for these insurance companies and these networks, a lot of times you're not signing up for just one plan. So you sign up with a network, and a great example is Guardian, and you sign up for Guardian, you're actually in network with several insurance companies. Mm-hmm. And you need to know that Guardian contract and those Guardian fees apply to the other insurance companies in the network. You need to know that. First of all, many doctors don't actually know exactly how many plans they're in network with, because it's not just laid out there. They don't just hand you this book that says you're in network with these companies, you get paid these fees. You have to ask for that information. You have to kind of put it in yourself and find out. But the other thing is, you could be in network with the Guardian network, sign up for another network, and some of those plans are on both lists. And then what happens is the lowest fee schedule applies.
Right.
So that's why it's really important to know every part of the agreement and who's leased under it. And they call it a leasing agreement. So you might find out when you do the math that the majority of your patients are from Guardian, and it makes sense, and you get a decent fee schedule from Guardian. And then you find out that you join this other network, and now half of these patients are getting processed under a different network, and you're losing another 10% overall. So you really have to match it up and see the difference. So it can be a benefit to be in network to get new patients, but it can also be something you really have to watch to make sure that you aren't signing too many contracts and that you aren't getting discounts or discounting your services further than you thought you were.
Right. And so here you brought up a great point that I want to add my 2 cents here on this. Is how I answer this question is it depends on where you are at and what goal you want to achieve. For example, if you are a startup, let's say, and your goal is just to get patients in the door because you just need a dollar, at that point, you might want to sign up for as many as possible. And what we do when we're consulting or coaching is we say, there's a couple ways to do this. One, you can always start with list like the top 10 to 20 employers in the area and find out what dental insurance that they cover and make sure you're on that plan. Or you can do what is most popular in the area. But if your goal is to get new patients in the door, you might want to sign up with more plans, because at that point, it's not necessarily about reimbursement. It's just about getting patients in the door. However, if you've got a decent patient flow and you are your goal is to increase your profitability or your production with fewer patients, then you want to be looking at the fee schedule. Then you want to be looking at the reimbursement rate. So this question also, you might, because a dollar's a dollar. It doesn't matter if you're taking Medicaid or you are Delta Dental and you are in the top 90% bracket. A dollar's a dollar when you need a dollar. And so consider the plans in your area. Consider what, like what Sherry is saying, how they're leased and what plans they're under, whether you're under an umbrella plan or you need to be credentialed individually with a company. But also you want to look at, do I just need a dollar or am I looking for a stronger reimbursement? Because you can always, well, not always, you can always evaluate your insurance plans as you move forward through the growth of your business and hire somebody like Sherry Jolly to negotiate your plans when they can be renegotiated, or at least do a comparison chart. We've got a comparison chart we give docs all the time on how you can compare your fees. So that's just a little bit of a viewpoint based on where you're at in your business and what your goals are in achieving.
Absolutely.
Any other points to that question, Sherry, you want to share?
Well, one of the things is if we are telling you to look at the fees and we're telling you to look at the fees per patient, you also need to look at the number of appointment types that you have in your practice and realize that if they give you an extra $10 on a crown, but they're taking $2 off your hygiene visit in order to do that, if you're negotiating a fee, then you're not actually getting more money. So those are some of the other things. You can't just look at the list of fees. You have to look at how you're using the codes. So if you are seeing 10 hygiene patients a day and you're seeing 1 crown patient a day and they give you a fee schedule, you send it back and say, can we work this out? However you work with that. And then they say, okay, well, we're going to raise your crown fee, but we're going to take $2 off the pro fee. Well, then So you got $10 for your crown patient and you lost $20 on your hygiene that day. And those little numbers add up, and that's actually kind of how they do that. So you need to pay attention to that. And you also need to pay attention to the amalgam codes. And do you know why it's important to pay attention to the amalgam codes?
Because they downgrade.
Because you're going to get paid based on amalgam fees and not posterior composite fees. So you can put those posterior composites on there, but the majority of the time you're going to get paid based on the amalgam fees. So you can negotiate $500 for a single surface posterior composite, but if they're calculating it on amalgam, all you're doing is passing extra cost onto the patient and not actually and also decreasing your treatment plan acceptance. The higher the dollar, the harder it is to get that person to say yes and schedule. So remember that fillings are downgraded, bridges are downgraded, crowns are downgraded, implants are downgraded. So you need to understand what those things are downgraded to. You need to look at the partial fee if you do a lot of bridges or implants, because it's going to get downgraded to a partial denture. If you got a crown, you need to look at the full metal crown fee, because they're going to downgrade it to the full metal crown fee. So they always tell you to bring your top 20 codes that you use. But what you really need to do is the top 20 codes you get paid on.
Yes,
the downgraded codes.
That is a quote everyone needs to memorize. Can you say that one more time?
So when your insurance company asks you for your top 20 codes that you use, what you need to do is pay attention to the top 20 codes you get paid on. So you might use the posterior single surface composite fee every single day, or code every single day, but you get paid on the one surface amalgam code. So be sure that those downgraded codes are included in your negotiation.
Yeah. So wrapping up the second question, which is better? There are some nuances. There's definitely some critical and strategic thinking that you need to put into this. It's not an easy question to answer just yes, no, but hopefully with the tidbits we've given you, you've got a little bit better direction to go for where you're at.
Can I add one more thing?
You can always, Sherry will always add one more thing. Go ahead.
Yes, I will. I'll be like, I got one more thing to say. So one of the things that we run into, because we do billing and we also help doctors with their fee schedules and things like that, is we'll run into a great story. We had this front desk person who talks to the patients every day, and there was a major employer in their area that started offering a secondary option in the dental plan. And this front desk person was panicking. She's like, all of our patients that work for this company, we've got so many, and we need to sign up for this plan. Well, the plan was not a very good plan at all. And we had to go back and research it, but she had gotten the information. She was ready to have the contract signed and send all the stuff in. But we had to stop back and look. And then we said, oh no, that's just an option. So when the patients call, we shouldn't say, okay, yes, we'll sign up for that plan. We should say, actually, that's not the best plan. Why don't you keep the plan that you have? And then the patient can make the decision. But if they love you as the doctor, they might choose the plan that they can go to you for than not.
Choose a win-win situation.
Yes, but also don't ever just panic and fill out paperwork and send it in.
Yes.
Always double check it. And that's really, I see that a lot. They think, oh, we have to keep our patients happy. They always do it to keep the patients happy. And then inadvertently, they end up agreeing to 20% lower fees than you're already getting. So pay attention to that. Don't ever just send it in, and don't ever let a rep tell you that you're going to, the world's going to blow up if you don't.
Yeah. And again, we've got lots of stories, but we've had clients that just in talking to a rep, they signed up for another insurance plan, but that insurance plan, they actually already covered under Guardian, an umbrella plan. And the plan that they signed up for individually had lower fees. So guess what? All of a sudden now they're getting, I think it was like 30% lower reimbursement rates because they listened to a rep. You've got to do your due diligence.
Right.
So third question, what is the point of tracking adjustments? I'm very passionate about this. Tracking adjustments does so much for you. And when I talk to docs, They don't want to track gross production. They only want to track net. They want to be able to look in their practice management software, their PMS, and go, well, that's the real money I should be collecting, right? That they think that their net production is equal to their net collections. That's not the case. Net production does not equal net collections. But they don't want to have to be confused. They don't want to have to do any conversions. It's so important for you guys to track your adjustments. So important. So I've got my points, but Sherry, you go ahead and you share what your points are.
Well, it goes back to just what we were just discussing. There's going to be a time when some of these plans don't work out for you anymore. And you don't know that until you start tracking your adjustments. Because we have a client who, decide that they're trying to evaluate which plans they should be in and which plans they shouldn't. And so we look at this plan and we go, well, if we see 3 patients in hygiene with this plan, it equals to 1 patient in hygiene with this plan. So maybe what we need to do is get more with this plan and say goodbye to that plan, because we have to see 3 patients for the 1 patient. So those are, and you don't know that unless you're tracking your adjustments. And even though you use adjusted production in your practice management software and you do it based on fee schedules, there's usually a report in your practice management software that will compare the billed fees, which are the contracted fees, to the office fees per code. So you don't necessarily have to see all of that on one report. You can usually, it's a little hard to find, but I know Dentrix has it, and I believe all of the other ones have it too. So
has it too, I know for sure.
Yeah, so you can on your daily basis go, okay, this is our contracted fees, this is what we're billing out, and this is our net or adjusted production. But then you can go back and compare periodically if it stresses you out too much to look at it daily. But periodically you need to keep an eye on it, and you need to see if the margins are moving. And it goes back to, do I need this insurance company or not? Do I have enough patients to justify maybe going out of network with some, knowing that there could be some patients who go somewhere else if you do. But if you have to see 3 patients for each one, that's a decision you need to make. So
you only know that's happening if you track gross production. So from my point of view, because again, I'm a business coach, business consultant, right? So I focus a lot on the numbers. And one of the things that adjustments will do for you is it gives you an indication on fraudulent behavior from some staff. Oh. So for example, and Ms. Sherry's a certified fraud person, so she's big on, she's very in tune to fraud. But let's say you're a busy doc, you hired a highly qualified office manager or insurance coordinator for your front desk so you didn't have to worry about those kinds of things, and it brings you peace of mind. So if you don't track your gross production and you only track your net production, you don't know what they are adjusting off. They could be adjusting off anything that they want or writing off anything that they want, because you're only putting in net. You're only putting in with what you're reimbursed, not what you want to be reimbursed, or not what you submitted to the insurance company. Eventually, there is a trend of what your monthly adjustments should be based on your insurance plans, your average patient base, and your service fees.
Absolutely.
Let's say that's 30% adjustments. That's pretty decent, 30 to 35%, because that means that your reimbursement rate is around 60 to 75% in this 60 to 75% range of reimbursement, right, on the fee schedule. So let's say it's 30%. Well, all of a sudden, if you are just running your adjustment report at the end of the month, and all of a sudden you've got a 52% adjustment for that month, what happened to 22% of the money? Where did that go? What happened? And so it allows you to have a conversation with your team that is managing or submitting your insurance claims. Did a patient get upset and they needed to refund a patient and they did it without you? Did something happen to a claim and they submitted a claim twice, or something was wrong with the claim and they needed to resubmit different codes, or they did an appeal and you lost an appeal. It gives you enough information to go, wait a minute, what's going on? And
Absolutely.
it allows you then to ask questions, just tracking your adjustments.
Yes, absolutely. I'll give you an example. There was a doctor that I was working with that all of a sudden their collections wasn't keeping up, and I just pulled the adjustments and I was like, well, your senior citizen courtesy tripled in the last 2 months. So did you see triple the senior citizens in the last 2 months? Mm-hmm. Oh no, they didn't. and so, if all you're looking at is that the day sheet says there's a $500 to deposit and you're putting $500 in your bank, you'll never catch it.
Yeah, never.
You'll never catch it. But what people with bad intentions tend to do is they don't want any attention drawn to it. So the patient who brought the payment in or wrote a check to you, if they came in and presented the payment, what the people with bad intentions do will have to make that patient's balance go down, because the patient will come back and say, hey, I paid money. Why isn't my bill gone down? So they have to do that through adjustments. So that's not the only way that people with bad intentions can take advantage, but that is a very common way, and tracking adjustments is one of those due diligence things that you have to do as a business owner. You just have to do.
Yeah, it's to protect your money. And I cannot tell you how many times I have to talk to doctors and they stick their heels in the sand saying, no, I don't want to track gross. It confuses me. Well, then if it confuses you, then it's easier to confuse you around naughty behavior, right? Potential embezzlement. So if something is confusing you and you are the owner, that doesn't mean that we eliminate the confusion by doing a behavior that is not healthy for the business. It means you need to learn. It's an opportunity to learn and grow and understand deeper to protect yourself. So
absolutely, confusion is the tool of the embezzler.
Absolutely. Don't be confused. And if you have questions, please post them in the chat. We want to hear it. Okay, let's go on. How can I get paid for all of the x-rays I need to diagnose? I hear this all the time, Sherry, where you get a new patient coming in and they'll do the Pano and the FMX and they'll do the iTero scanners and they do all of these things. But then what they do is they just write them off. Or they don't even necessarily put them in the chart in the accounts, in the patient ledger that they did it and they adjusted off, which that you need to be doing as well. You might put it in the clinical chart, but you're not putting it in the patient record, the ledger. So let's talk about how can doctors potentially get paid for the x-rays and diagnostics that they are doing for patients. So what we tell some doctors is, you got to look into your insurance plans for sure. Those FMX and those panos, my phone was going on. And yes, we are live. and some insurance companies will pay for a pano, but not on the same day that the FMX is done. So don't do the pano the same day. Pano, you don't need a pano for diagnosis for certain services, right? A lot of doctors just want it and they rely on it to get a fuller, comprehensive view of the mouth and the condition of the gums and teeth. But insurance companies now, they say you don't need a panel for diagnosing, you need bite wings and PAs. So if you really are going to navigate the insurance game to get paid for the x-rays and the diagnostic pictures you take, don't do the pano on the same day you're doing we say do 4 bite wings and 3 PAs. That's what we say. And some insurance companies, when you submit it, they will convert that over to an FMX.
Yeah.
But some of them don't. Some of them will pay out the 4 bite wings and 3 PAs. And then you'll be able to submit the piano just even on the next day or on another visit. So Sherry, that's kind of what we talk about at JB Partners. But of course, we leave it up to our clients to do their due diligence around what their insurance plans are. But what do you say?
Well, I say the first thing you have to do is find out. And the first thing you have to do is check the patient's eligibility. And checking eligibility is not, hey, this person has this plan and yes, they're active. It really is, you have to check the codes. And so sometimes you can get that information online from the insurance company, and sometimes you have to call and get the details. But if you like in your practice, you like to have these x-rays taken, then you need to find out how and when they're covered so that you can talk to the patient. So we'll go back to, I can't just write it off. You can't just write off x-rays either. So if you need an x-ray, then this is where you have to build this relationship with the patient and say, I need to take this x-ray. It's going to cost you this much money because your x-ray is not covered. Or you can send me the x-rays that you had at other doctor's office. If they're readable and diagnosable, then we'll try to use those. But what you have to do is have the information so you can make the decision. Because A, we already said you can't just write it off. B, you have to inform the patient of what the cost will be. And C, you find out if the information is already there, maybe just somewhere else. And maybe you can acquire that information. So that's really what I want to say to that. But it all starts with asking the question per code on the eligibility.
So eligibility, if you're really going to get into that detail, you cannot do it the same day. You cannot do it when the patient walks in the door. As a matter of fact, Sherry and I, the gospel of Sherry and Jen is eligibility at minimum 48 hours in advance. Minimum.
At minimum, yeah.
Right. Because if you're going to get information so detailed about certain codes, that takes time. And we address a lot of this on our first webinar. So how can you get paid? Eligibility, talk to the patients, see what's already been covered, see when their last x-rays have been, see if they can get the other ones, and ask your insurance companies, do they consider 4 bite wings, 3 PAs, a full series FMX? Do they pay a piano on the same day as an FMX? You have to ask these questions because you can't just take it and not post it or not share with the insurance company that you took it. You can't just do it because you want to do it. There must be a
and this is actually
a financial chart of it.
And this is actually where you have to differentiate between insurance dictating your treatment and you doing the treatment. This is where you have to get the information and take the stand and build that relationship of trust with the patient so that they follow your guidance and your suggestion, because these are some of the areas where we see patients and offices losing out because they are so focused on only doing what insurance will pay for instead of what the patient needs. And then you become a beauty salon. You become a luxury service, and you're not healthcare anymore. You're just a service organization. Well, you're healthcare. And so insurance is a benefit and it helps, but it is not. Insurance doesn't keep people healthy. You keep people healthy.
Insurance just helps pay for it.
Right.
So, all right, let's move on. First, let me check in before we move on to the next couple. Any questions? Are people still there? Yes, Amber, we will share the comparison chart that we share with clients. That's no problem. It's an Excel spreadsheet. We make it super easy for you. Any other questions or comments? If I'm doing this right. Here we go. Okay. The other thing that I would love to know is there any comments? Again, I'm still learning how to navigate. Okay, people said that they're good. Excellent. I don't know how to check to see if there are questions or comments on the Facebook page, though, because we are Facebook Live as well. We'll learn, right? Okay, so let's move on to the next page. Okay, still the struggles, mistakes, blunders, and myths of navigating the dental insurance game. How do I know who I'm in network with? Oh my gosh. This is why this is a great place for Sherry and I to pause and say all of these questions that are difficult to answer, and we are actually building a course for you. It is a course that is going to be so comprehensive about navigating the dental insurance game. It takes you from basics to advanced, from how to do eligibility to how to bill to how to collect. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but look for that into the future, because this, again, seems like a very easy question to ask and answer, but it's not. So, Sherry, how does one know who they're in network with?
Well, there are several ways. The first thing is you probably get the most information the fastest when you're checking eligibility for the patients that you're scheduled. Now, you probably have the list of contracts that you signed, and hopefully you can go look through those contracts. Hopefully you saved them. The insurance provider manuals, if you signed contracts, and usually somewhere in there is that. But let's say that you walked into a practice. Let's say you're an office manager, and this has happened to me as an office manager. I walked into a practice and they said, we take Delta. Okay, and then I'm processing the claims and I realized that they take more than Delta. They take this plan, that plan, this plan. And so what I had to start doing is reading the EOBs, and then I realized that we should have been asking this when we check the eligibility, because if you don't know who you're in network with, you don't know what you're supposed to be writing off and what you're not supposed to be writing off. You don't know if your co-pays, your patient portions are correct. It turns into very stressful environment for whoever's doing the billing. And this is how, not having this information, this is how you set your office managers up to fail. This is how you get high turnover at the front desk. So this is very important. So one of the things that I had to do, because I had to do it backwards, I took over from someone who was not sharing any information and what didn't seem to save any. And the doctor just said, I know we take Delta. Well, you take Delta, and then when we checked eligibility, we asked what network. When they said, yes, you're in network, well, what network are we in? So then when I got the names of those networks and I started putting those things together, also on the EOBs, I got the information, because it will tell you processed as part of whatever network. Then I realized then I could have a list, and then I contacted them. I got all the payers in their network. I got the fee schedules. Then we learned how to negotiate the fee schedules and found out which insurance companies just aren't negotiating. It's take it or leave it, and which ones we needed to pay attention to. This is not an easy thing. If you don't have, I'm partial to notebooks, like a big binder full of contracts, and I think that's an office manager thing. Because all the best ones have binders.
I got stacks. I'm a stacker.
Yeah, well, they have files or binders or something like that. So if you don't have the notebook, you have to rebuild, like I had to do as an office manager. You get it through checking eligibility, and you need to just kind of keep that list on the side and then contact those companies and get the information you were missing so that you have it all together. Then you can update your practice management software. Then you can make sure that the patients are entered correctly and attached to the right fee schedules, all of those types of things, which you cannot do if you don't know what the network is, you don't know what the fees are. So if you have to do it backwards, eligibility and EOBs. Hopefully there's contracts somewhere in the office.
Yes, and if not, because I cannot tell you an office that I've been in that they had the contracts right there. I mean, they might be at home, or they might be in a box that the doctor had to find because the office manager did it, or they did it so long ago. But you got to use your tools and resources, and an Excel spreadsheet or Evernote or whatever, and you must keep a list of the insurances that you are in for. or in with, sorry, I just checked the chat, that you are in network with, an Excel spreadsheet, and you can list it Delta, and then each plan under Delta, or you can list it network, and then which insurance company underneath that network. But keep that up to date and leave it as, for you as the business owner, you keep the master, and then you give it to your staff as they need it, or as they come on board, or as they as things change, and they can manage it and update it. But you've got to utilize some tools and resources.
One more way, Jen said utilize tools and resources, and it just a light bulb for me. Sometimes you can look in the practice management software. If there are fee schedules entered, you're more than likely in network with those fee schedules. So if you have a fee schedule in your office, in your practice management software, you're probably in network with Aetna, and that would be a good place to start too. Is every name on a fee schedule that's in your software, call them. Make sure you're in network and get a copy of the updated fee schedule. That's going to solve a lot of problems if it was entered in there.
Yeah.
That's just a good place to check.
Well, I still am in offices, just going into offices now where the fee schedules are not in the PMS. They are literally in a 3-ring binder, and the staff are flipping through pages where the fee schedules are in page protectors. I mean, we cannot run a business system. You can't run a business that way. You can't do it. You can't do it. You must take the time, whether it's you, your staff on a weekend, pay them, bring in a coach consultant to do it for you. You can't run your business on fee schedules and a page protector. Okay, we got to move on. Okay, what do I do with credit balances? And this is something that I've gotten into debates with, or seen debates on message boards. No, you should not carry any credit balances. You must write a check right away. To yes, you can keep the credit balance as long as you notify the patient, or don't notify the patient and carry the balance, and just let them know when they come in for their next appointment. So I've seen it all over the board. Sherry, what do you tell your clients, or what do you talk about? I know what we say, which I'll share in a bit, but what do you say?
I say that if it's a true credit and the patient overpaid, the faster you refund the patient, the better relationship you have with the patient and the better trust you have with the patient. If they find out that you've been holding $300 for 6 months, you're losing a patient.
Or even $5.
Yes. The faster you refund a legitimate credit balance, the stronger your relationship is with that patient. Because you have to remember that if you hold that credit balance, what you have done is cut the credibility of your treatment coordinator. And what I mean is your treatment coordinator has to present a treatment plan and an out-of-pocket portion to the patient and says, we estimate your insurance pays this much, and we estimate you pay this much. It's an estimate. We did our best by gathering as much information from your insurance as possible, and here's what we think. And we coach you all to get paid that estimated patient portion at the time of service. But what if that estimate was off? Well, are you going to get that patient to write you a check again the next time, or their family or friends that go to you, if you don't say, hey, our estimate was off, here's the check? So refunding legitimate credit balances is absolutely a key relationship builder to the patient. It instills trust with the patient. But many times when I am cleaning up accounts receivables, credit balances are not legitimate. So you have to, before you cut the check, which you should do quickly, you have to review the account. And you need to look at the EOBs and look at when the account was zero, and follow the track from zero to credit balance. Follow the EOBs. This is something hopefully your stuff's clean and you are only looking at 2 or 3 transactions. But one of the common things that I see that creates a credit balance is fee schedules are entered and it's calculated on adjusted production. And then when the person posts the payment, they post a second adjustment because there's an adjustment listed on the EOB and they don't realize the adjustment's calculated in. The other thing that's the most common is when patients have 2 insurances and they put 2 adjustments on there, and then suddenly the patient's getting paid to come to the dentist. Well, you can't pay people to come to the dentist so that you can get paid by the insurance company. That's a whole other problem. So you need to pay attention to that. You need to pay attention to how the credit balance happened. If it's a legit, send it out fast. If it's not legit, and let's just say you have a patient who paid in advance for treatment and never finished the treatment. You can't get a hold of them. Maybe they moved. Maybe they passed away. You're supposed to send it to your state. You're supposed to write a check to your state to, many times it's called Department of Unclaimed Funds. Sometimes it's through your Department of Commerce. You send it off to the state and you get it off your books. And believe it or not, doctors are starting to experience audits from the state for credit balances. I've actually participated in 3 in the last 3 years, and it was simply a credit balance audit.
And I've been in offices all the time where there's $1,000 credit and it's been on there for years, and they're like, well, we don't know what to do with it because the person moved. Most of the time it's moved. I don't think there's been a death. But so what we say, absolutely, when we're working with clients, is we say you need to notify the patient immediately. If you get that EOB and you've gone through and you've done your due diligence and you've made sure that you are not doing a double adjustment, because what Sherry said is absolutely true, you have to know how you have it set up in your practice software to auto-calculate adjustments. In your fees, did you click the buttons where it says auto-calculate the adjustments and you're already tracking that? Or do you need to manually enter the adjustments and write-offs? You have to know how you initially set that up to make sure that your credit balances are real, true credit balances. So we don't necessarily say you have to refund the patient immediately. We say we have to notify the patient immediately. So once you verify that that credit balance is accurate, I don't care if it's 36 cents, you call the patient, you tell them to leave a message, you email the patient, and you notate, of course, that you've called them, that you have to talk to them about billing. Don't tell them why, but you have to talk to them about billing because you want them to call you back. And if something is about a bill, they're going to want to talk about it. But you get to say, hey, good news, you have 36 cents as a credit. Would you like for me to keep that on your account to use towards your next treatment? Or would you like for me to cut you a check for 36 cents or 300 or 5,000? It doesn't matter. Depending upon what they say, you then want to put it in writing and send them an email, and they need to respond to the email of what they agreed to. If they agreed that they, yes, leave my credit balance on there of this amount per your conversation, get it in writing, and then make sure you take a screenshot of that and put it in their Smart Docs, or if you can, put the email in their Smart Docs or attach it to their patient chart. But you have to have it in writing that they give you permission to leave the credit on file. If you do not have all of those things, then yes, you must write a check right away.
Absolutely.
Do not leave that credit balance on there. Okay. What do I do when a patient has 2 insurances? And we've got about 5-10 minutes here, so let's try and keep it as short as possible, Ms. Sherry Jolly.
Well, when a patient has 2 insurances, first of all, if you have to bill both insurances unless they sign the high-tech form and say that you don't, but you typically have to do that. And then what you have to do is, I always recommend never applying a write-off to somebody with 2 insurances till after the secondary insurance pays. Secondary insurance is confusing for the pros. It's so when you've got a new person at your front desk, you can end up with credit balances. You can end up, and it's confusing to your front desk. It's confusing to you. It's 10 times more confusing to your patient, and it breeds mistrust. So remember that you bill primary insurance. You have to establish who's primary, which you do with the eligibility check. You bill the primary insurance. Then you send a report, which is the EOB of what primary paid with the secondary claim. And you can explain that to the patient. You can't bill both insurances at the same time. You have to bill one, then the other.
And that's really important because patients will get information from their primary insurance that there's still a bill pending.
Yes.
There's a bill, and it doesn't say, because your primary insurance doesn't know anything about the secondary insurance. So
right.
They're not put on the EOB, be patient. Your dental office is now going to bill your secondary insurance.
They never say that.
Right? They're not going to say that.
Yeah.
So the patient's going to get an EOB saying patient responsibility, and there's going to be a dollar amount there, and you're going to get a phone call, most likely, from an upset patient saying, but I have 2 insurances, why do I have it? So here's what you need to tell them up front, that after the primary insurance is billed, you most likely are going to get an EOB or an explanation of benefits that says patient responsibility. Do not panic.
Yes.
You're more than welcome to give us a call, but do not panic, because we will get the same thing, and we then need to bill the secondary insurance who knows nothing about the first insurance company. So
right.
It's about proactive communication with your patient to make sure that they don't get upset through the entire process. Sorry.
Well, and also you need the EOB is a requirement, and if you don't send the EOB, many times it gets bounced back and says send us an EOB, or sometimes they process it as a primary and then you got overpaid.
Yeah.
And guess what? You got to refund it. You have to send that money back and get a correction. You can't have it processed as primary if they're not. The other thing is, if they have private insurance and Medicaid, 100% all the time, Medicaid is secondary. Always Medicaid is secondary. So.
Okay. So how do I know when I should resubmit a claim?
Well, if it's, the first clue would be it's not paid.
Yeah.
But
for sure.
Yeah. Well, but there's a difference between resubmitting a claim that's denied. You can appeal a denial if it's not a good denial. But if they're denying it based on the terms of the plan, like I only pay for 2 exams a year and you did a 3rd exam, you're never going to win that appeal. You should not resubmit that a claim, because the policy is, that's why you check the eligibility. They only pay for 2 exams. This 3rd exam is the patient portion, which you have to bill the patient. Now, if it's a denial based on they don't think that the insurance company doesn't say, I don't think you should have done that, but they say it in professional legalese terms, I don't think you should have done that, then you can fight it.
Legalese.
that isn't, but then what you do is you send them the clinical documentation and say, okay, well, let's have a real doctor look at the claim and see if a real doctor thinks that. And then suddenly when you challenge them and you realize that it was just some call center rep that denied the claim, then you get it done. So if it's if it's a denial that is not associated with an actual provision of the plan, I would resubmit it and appeal it if I could. But here's the other thing. If your claim just isn't on file, don't just click the button and resubmit it. First, find out if there's a problem with the information. Did the claim actually reach the insurance company? If you're using electronic claim submission, you have a report that says it was accepted or it was not accepted. So many people don't pay attention to the rejection reports. So what I find out when I take over a messy AR system is the majority of the claims that are unpaid never actually made it to the insurance company because they were rejected.
Based on wrong information, like
yes,
a social security number or a member number is not put in the right place, or
yes.
One thing Sherry and I will be addressing heavily in this course is how to capture and enter the data correctly, because it starts and ends with that.
Absolutely, and that is really key, because if you just keep hitting resubmit, it's an exercise in futility. It's never going to get to the insurance company until you fix the data. So the first thing you do when a claim is not paid is you find out why it's not paid. Then you'll know if you should resubmit or appeal, or if you need to fix something before you resubmit.
Exactly. So check your rejection. Don't assume. So I get this a lot when we're in offices. It's so easy to blame the insurance company. So easy. I've had front desk people say, I have sent this claim 4 times and they keep saying they've never received it, and I've even mailed it to them and they say they never received it. Well, it might be because they never received it, because information is inaccurate.
Well, that's the thing. They might have received it and zapped it. I call it zapped. There's probably a real term for it, but they received it. And a great example is there's a lot of plans now that don't use the social security number as the ID. You send the claim with the social security number as the ID, and they will not process your claim.
Yeah.
And they'll say they didn't receive it. So, and you,
instead of saying they received it, but the information was wrong, they just say they didn't receive it because the rep sitting at the insurance company looks in and it's not in their queue. It's not in their portal. So they don't know that the mail room went, nope, I say they bumped it, but they bumped it. It didn't even make it to the queue.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's finish up. Last one. How do I know when I should appeal a claim? Well, Sherry, you already talked about that. Mm-hmm. That's when there is a provision a covered provision that somehow the insurance company denied, and you need to go through that process. So we got a chat. Amber asked, how do I get access to the course? We will answer that in just a moment, because I'm sure a lot of you are at this point, with all the information that we've given you, what do we do at this point? It's a lot of information. Yes, we've addressed a lot of these myths, struggles, blunders, but what do you do? In our first webinar, we talked about 3 things that you absolutely need to do. We talked about you need to get savvy. So I'm just going to summarize real quick what that first webinar was about. You need to get savvy. You need to know your contracts. You need to know what's covered. You need to do eligibility. You need to do your verification. You need to know your codes. You need to get savvy. You need to know deadlines, right? You need to get informed. You can't stick your head in the sand about insurance and expect to get paid. That's like going out for a football team and no one having a playbook and expecting everyone to be able to run to the right end zone or, be in the right positions. Well, go ahead.
I was going to say also the getting informed, you need to understand that just because you hired someone with experience doesn't mean they actually have been trained in this, because this section of the business of dentistry is such a murky area that if you hired someone with experience, you need to still provide training if you want it done right.
Yeah, you don't know what the previous office did. And if the previous office did it right, did it well, did it with your kinds of insurance plans? I mean, did someone come from an HMO and you're a PPO? Did someone come from PPO and you have a lot of Medicaid? You still need to do your own due diligence and do training. And then get efficient. I had a cute picture there. I don't know why it's not showing up. But get efficient. Sherry says something all the time. Pre-work is so much less expensive than rework. I love that quote that she says all the time. And it's so true. So getting efficient means doing training, getting informed, having documented process and systems. So where do you find the time? Where do you find the experts? Or where do you find all the information? Well, this is where we want to let you know we are having a course. Here's the course outline that we've come up with. It's not ready yet. We're still working on it. We're anticipating a June launch at this point, but we're going to talk about getting the right information, the art of insurance verification, because it is an art. We're going to talk about what happens if it's garbage in, garbage out, the importance of data entry and fee schedules and downgrades and adjustments. And then finally, show me the money, how to collect it, how to get 100% collections. All of our clients here at JV Partners have at least 100% collections, if not more. A lot of times, and partnering up with DSE is so helpful, we'll have 105, 110, 114% collections because we're able to recapture old money, or we're able to collect by adding more codes, by adding the right codes, by not having to address or not having to do additional write-offs and adjustments. So here's a little bit about the course details. And Amber, you asked this question. Who's the course going to be for? It's going to be for owners, office managers, admins, and the desperately seeking, because we know that there are so many people out there that think that they have the right information, and hopefully we're also bringing to attention that you might not have the right information. If you think you can just write something off, you don't have the right information. So the desperately seeking, we're going to hold it on Thinkific and Facebook. Thinkific is an online course platform that everyone will be able to access. So we're going to be doing it on Thinkific and private Facebook groups. You're going to be getting a lot of support. There's videos and downloads and workbooks. It's going to be very comprehensive. We're looking at a June launch. And honestly, where can you do it? Right from your couch, at your timeline, your convenience, your pace, right in your jammies. So again, I'm Jen Butler.
I'm Sherry Jolly.
The wonderful Sherry Jolly. And we hope that this has been really informative for you. We're very passionate about getting the right information out there so that you can reduce stress and increase profitability. And we want to be able to show you the money. So any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Now, if you want to join the next webinar, email us and like our pages. So, or go to our website. My website is jenbutlerpartners.com. Sherry's is dentalsupportessentials.com. You can go to our websites, sign up for our newsletters or blogs. You can go to our Facebook pages. I'm Jen Butler Partners on Facebook. Sherry, what is your Facebook page?
My Facebook page is Dental Support Essentials.
You can like us, follow us. We'll be having a lot more information about our next webinar in May, and then more information about the course. So I'm going to stop sharing, and I think I know how to end this. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you guys for joining. Spread the word. We've got more coming.
Absolutely. Thanks. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.